It's these two guys. These two guys. It's these two guys.
Hey folks, welcome back again to another episode of These Two Guys. I was out on vacation. George left a nice video for you guys to watch in the interim, and I hope you watched it. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, we still need to see those comments, even more so likes, subscribes, and follows. But I digress. I am Larry Richardson.
I'm George Henry.
And we are These Two Guys.
So before we get started here, I want, because we're going to get into this and it's going to be fun and we're going to disagree and then we're going to agree and it's all going to be wild. But first I want to find out, Key West.
Oh, man.
How was your trip to Key West?
You know, we didn't do a lot. It was basically a relaxation.
So you didn't go out and, I know you went to the southernmost point.
Yeah, we went to the southernmost point, which is awesome. Just like land and then water, which is great. I mean, but it is the southernmost point of, United States. So that was actually pretty cool.
Did you go to the Maritime Museum?
No.
So you didn't see Deb's grandmother's name then, did you?
No. Is it the Maritime? Where's the Maritime Museum?
The one right down by near the dock area. There.
Is that the plaques that has all the names?
It's the old brown building there, the big, tall, 3-story brown building. It's got a lookout on top.
We've seen a couple of those. It was not the railroad. What was that? It was a brick building, and it was kind of like a mall inside.
No,
but,
this one is
okay.
different.
No.
But it's down to, so I don't know if you know this. My wife, Deb, went to high school in Key West. Her family had been there for over 50 years and was very involved in the community. Her mom and dad, her grandmother and grandfather, have their names all over. And in fact, there's a couple of videos that if you go to the museum, you watch the videos, her grandmother's name's in there.
Oh, wow.
Her aunt's name is on the playhouse there.
It's in the playhouse, but I think we didn't go in. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of the thing there. But you relaxed.
Relaxed.
Where'd you guys stay?
We stayed at a KOA. God, I can't remember the name of this. It was a KOA right there in Key West. Beautiful place. It got wiped out during that hurricane they had in 2017. Tons of RVs, but basically most of the time we just sat in the pool or the hot tub.
So did you rent an RV or something?
No. We flew into Miami.
Did you get a tent?
No, they have hotels there.
Oh, they have a hotel.
They have hotels there. Very, very nice hotels. I mean, like almost extended stay type places. They have laundry and they have kitchens and all that type of stuff. Nice deck. Got a view of the bridges, the 7 Mile bridges and stuff. And we ate at a couple of spots, but mostly we just went there to chill. We just had to unwind, and we took in a couple of sites. We went to go see. Took a couple of tours. We went through Star Island. So we got to see P. Diddy's house, both of them. I didn't realize he had 2 houses there, but right next to what used to be Will Smith's house. Apparently Will Smith moved out when P. Diddy moved in because it was just too loud. But he has a mansion, and then there's another more secluded mansion right next to it. So he brought both of them. And the white mansion, the one that's secluded, apparently is where the freak-offs were happening.
Well, we when we were down there, we took these Sea-Doo rides down there. And they took us by Noriega's house on the thing there. And they were talking about how when Noriega's house was sold.
Manuel Noriega or the rapper Noriega?
No, Manuel Noriega.
Okay.
The drug dealer. Noriega.
Okay.
So
there are 2.
Yeah, they say. So anyway, so he was telling the story about when the guy who bought the mansion from the estate or whatever it was after they confiscated it did some remodeling and found $8 million in cash in one of the walls.
Oh, I remember hearing that, yeah.
And it was like, I wish I'd bought that house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but then again, I couldn't have afforded the house. It was a beautiful mansion. It's right on the rocks there. It's good. So as we were going in the water, you could see it right there. And he pointed out, told us a story about it. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Miami is very beautiful. It's a lot of. I mean, we got there to perfect weather. It's like 88 degrees. It was still a little humid, but had key lime pie, official key lime pie from the Key Lime Pie Factory,
Right.
which is awesome. But yeah, we drove around up and down the Keys, took in a couple of restaurants, took in a couple of sites here and there. But we didn't want to try to do too much because
it was there to relax.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to keep you busy next month or in March.
March, yeah, because we're going to
Puerto Morelos in March. We're going to bring the camera equipment down with us. We're going to do some recording there and do a couple podcasts while we're there.
That'll be awesome.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
All right. So now that that's out of the way, while you were gone, I don't know, you probably paid attention to it a little bit, but there was the Alex Pretty shooting.
Yep.
The killing there. There was Ilhan Omar getting squirted
Attacked.
with.
Apple cider vinegar.
Is that what it was? Apple cider vinegar.
I think that's what they came up.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. And then when you first heard it, it was like, oh, they sprayed her in the eye. And well, when you saw the video, it didn't even come close.
Well,
he just did it on her shirt.
PSA here, as far as like first reports, never go with
the first.
Never
report.
go with the first report. The person who picked up the tear gas, the flash bang, and blew their hand off or whatever.
That didn't happen.
Well, at first they said they got shot in the hand,
no.
and then it's like, wait, what? So
That's what you get for picking that stuff up.
yeah, that's another PSA. Do not pick up a flash bang, because after it flashes, there is a bang. That's in the name.
Now it's different than a gas canister, but I guess someone probably thought it was a gas canister.
Probably there was a lot of tear gas and stuff being
A lot
tossed
of
to
tear
it.
gas, the one tossed on there. And so this is where it gets interesting, because while Larry and I agree in principle on a lot of the things, we don't necessarily agree in tactics.
Right.
And again, not that I disagree. It's a shameful thing that Alex Preddy died, and we said the same thing about
agree 100%.
about the other lady who died,
Renee Good.
And at the same time, I just wonder how we can get to the point where we are able to de-escalate this stuff.
Right.
And you were mentioning you had an interesting point about the fact that maybe more ICE agent or more ICE agents are being sent to sanctuary cities because there is no police support for immigration in some of those cities.
Yeah, that's and again, it's a belief. I don't have behind the curtains knowledge of what it is, but just in my mind, common sense and tactical knowledge, right? Like if you're imagine yourself being one cop going to arrest one person, right? And it's only one person. And you probably feel okay by yourself, but they still call for backup. Another 1 or 2 cars may show up, right?
You never know what might happen.
You never know what's going to happen. Now, imagine being a federal agent doing this and getting zero support from the police, but the attack on you, and I think I've said this when we first mentioned ICE in our last one, the attacks on ICE agents is going up to like 1,200%, if not higher at this point, right? So yeah, you might be out. They might be going to arrest one person, but you have zero police protection, zero police collaboration, and you're out there to arrest someone that's usually, from what I understand, and if somebody can correct me, please do. They're targeted raids. They're not just like random walking around and like, oh, let me get this person out. From what I understand, these are targeted people, and I think. Department of Homeland Security has reported like 70% of the people that they've arrested either have violent criminal past convictions or pending violent criminal acts. And you guys can correct me on this if I'm wrong. You can't really trust a source because it's coming from a biased source of information. Right. So, but if that number is correct, then yeah, that makes sense why you have more agents, because 1, they're going after violent people. Number 2, you have zero police assistance or protection. Number 3, there's going to be a mob outside of people. And it could be 30, 40 people. It could be 5 or 6. One of them might just be unhinged. And you need that backup. So that's, to me, is a logic why I understand why the number increases when there's more resistance. And the other 3,000 something counties where ICE either have been or are going, you don't see these numbers because they are participating with federal law. They are participating to move these people out. And, 1 or 2 agents will do the job in a minivan. But here you got protesters.
Well, and, there's the sense, too, that and again, it's not like we have a lot of statistics because there's no way of really knowing. But I think the majority of ICE agents are well within their job description that they're doing them. I think there's a few in there, and I'll cite something here in a minute to talk about that may not be properly trained, should not be in that position at that particular time.
Right.
And we talked about that with the Renee Good shooting. I mentioned whether this guy, maybe he had PSD, maybe he didn't. We don't know. We have no way to know about that. These other 2 agents that fired upon Alex Preddy, we don't know their background.
Right.
We have not found out their background yet.
Right.
But the reason I bring this up is because I recently interviewed Val Hoyle, and I don't have this clip. It's not one of the clips I shared with you, but I'll get the clip out there. And she was talking about how, they have this $50,000 sign-on bonus, right? And there's a website you can go to and you can put your resume on there. And then from that resume there, if you get 4 weeks online training, the thing is, what it does is the algorithm in there, if it sees the term officer in the application,
It gets pushed up.
it gets pushed up
Yeah.
and gets forwarded. However, the term officer doesn't necessarily mean, it could be school safety officer. It
Yeah,
could be whatever.
yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to mean
Traffic officer.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to mean police officer, federal officer, border patrol, sheriff's department. Right. So the reason I say this because a lot of people are talking about, oh well, there's KKK, there's Proud Boys. There's no empirical evidence or no evidence that that's happening whatsoever. But there is a likelihood that some of these people may not be trained to the level of, say, DPS, Department of Public Safety, Sheriff's Department, and all that.
Right.
And it takes a certain person to be able to do this, with a calm mind.
That's true. And I agree with that 100%. We don't know the level of training that many of these ICE agents have. Now, I can call that into question, but then I have to also call into question as to why is it only happening in certain areas?
Well, that's
right?
true.
Because there's still a huge influx of these ICE agents that are being hired, right? But we're not seeing this level of violence across the board. I think there's like 9 counties that these type of protests and stuff are going on, and give me my Democratic friends, they're all Democratic states, Democratic cities. They're all sanctuary cities. And the one thing they all have in common is there's zero assistance from the police. So obviously those ICE agent numbers will increase, and tensions are high. I think, somebody can be trained for 10 years. Somebody can be trained for 10 weeks. Given the situation that they're in, can we really put ourselves in a situation to understand what's going on with them at that time? I think people will react differently to certain things based on whatever their environment is.
Well, and I think, we can talk about this all day long, and it really goes back to failed border policies, letting people in, not vetting people coming over illegally. We don't know who's coming over. Sometimes you don't know who's coming over until they get caught the first time.
Right.
I mean, in Oregon, I've said this before, on a daily basis, I'm reading articles where, an illegal is caught with drugs, paraphernalia, cash,
Human
weapons.
trafficking, yeah.
Human trafficking that are going up and down I-5 here in Oregon. And it's just one of those things. It's like, we have to get back to some kind of smart policy about our border. Now, I say one thing about Trump and give him kudos for that. The amount of illegals coming across the open border now has dropped.
Almost zero.
Dropped dramatically.
Yeah,
Dropped dramatically compared to the others. At the same time, Obama, deported 2.1 million.
I think almost 5 million.
Was it that many?
He's still the highest one because Trump is already Trump is still at like 2 million plus, but
was it 5 million?
But only 600,000 were forcibly deported. The other one's self-deported.
Yeah.
Because they got the money, they have the right to come back through to the port of entry. Yeah. They can do it legally. So,
I don't have a problem with people coming here legally.
Yeah, I don't have, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I get into these debates with people about immigration, and they think that I'm like this heartless drone that thinks that people should not be entering this country, and what they fail to realize is that the port of entry has never been closed. It's not closed today. It wasn't closed yesterday. It wasn't closed January 20th, 2025. It has not been closed. So no one's saying that people can't come into the country. And for some reason, some people get that mindset that what we're saying is we can't have immigrants come into the country. And that's like, no, that's not it at all. Port of entry. Yeah. Legally, they can be vetted. That keeps them safe. That keeps us safe. And I think that's just the part. I think that's just a message that just doesn't get pushed, that there is a port of entry. And, again, one of my huge debates is, and I go back to my mother saying, don't start nothing, there won't be nothing.
Yeah, don't start no, won't be no.
Won't be no.
Yeah. I Yeah,
And it's hard because,
It
you know,
is.
our heart goes out. I feel for a lot of these people that have come here and they may not, you know, have come through the port of entry. They may have come here illegally and they're struggling to try to become a citizen. And I feel for those people. But
and they're doing the jobs that a lot of us
a lot of us don't want to do.
don't want to do.
Or they're doing jobs that some of us can't do
Right.
because maybe we're not even smart enough. But it's a fence, right? Do you want to go color of law or do you want to go, you know, moral high ground? Because you really can't do both as it comes to immigration. In my opinion, you can't really do both. Because if you want to say you know, if you want to do color of law and due process and everything, well, then they're here illegally. They have to go. If you want to go to moral high ground, then yes, we got to figure out some way of getting them into to a pathway to citizenship legally, and or even illegally, so that way they can stay. But then we have to take the bad with the good. So you know, really, you got to figure out where you are on that fence. And most of us, I think you and I are probably on that, right on the crest. We're right in the center of that fence.
Well, and the problem is with a lot of this is that there's a pendulum, and it never ends up in the middle.
In the middle. Nope.
Right? You know, we let too many people in, then we have to deal with how we're going to
Vet
affect
them and get them out. Yeah.
get them out. And I don't think, you know, like they say, well, we want to get rid of the worst of the worst, and some are getting caught up
Yep.
in that aren't the worst of the worst.
The collateral.
But we wouldn't have to even be worried about that if we never let the worst of the worst in to begin
Right.
with.
And that's the don't start nothing, don't be nothing
Right.
argument that I always have. It's just, and it's sad because, you know, and there's videos of, you know, that one where Texas put out the barbed wire, and then they have the forklift, the heavy machinery comes and lift it up, and there's like hordes of people just coming through, and they're just running through the fence. And it's like, well, people say, well, that's not that bad. Well, no, it's not that bad. People are escaping poverty. They're escaping dictatorship. They're escaping crime and violence where they're from. But, you know, according to right now, if you look at the statistics, out of 10 people, 7 of them could be violent criminals. If you just look at it just the way the rest are currently, right? So, again, according to Homeland Security or DHS or whoever's putting out these statistics.
Yeah, but they're targeted arrests. So if they're getting 7 out of 10 violent criminals, it's because they know who these people are.
They know who they are.
And they're going after them. As opposed to if you just did a wide, broad scale of saying, okay, you know, are 30% of the illegal immigrants in America violent? Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
I wouldn't say half. I think there's probably a very, very small percentage.
Small percentage. But those are the ones that are causing the problems.
Yes.
But at the same time, and this is something I don't know what you'll say about this, but you know, I look at this and I heard one of the congressmen talking about, well, you know, this gentleman raped and killed this child here. You know, we have citizen rapists and killers all over America that are getting away with it every day, probably at a larger percentage. In fact, I saw one of the statistics I was doing. In fact, I think Val Hoyle mentions it in our interview with her, that 70% of violent crimes are committed by
Repeat offenders.
and American citizens.
Yeah.
And a smaller amount by legal immigrants.
Right.
And the illegal immigrants is like 2%.
But if you look at the whole scale of population-wise, those numbers are always going to be lower because there's way more American citizens
Right.
than there are, you know.
Well, there are.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you know, if you're talking about, I hate to hear a senator or congressman saying, well, this one person did this, and that's why we have 3,000 ICE agents.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, our system is failing us on every level. It's failing us in the prison system. It's failing us in the police. It's failing us in the economics of people not starving. In fact, you mentioned earlier the difference between buying bread and stealing bread.
Right.
You know, and there's people out there who are not surviving, you know, that are now, you know, in the criminal justice system.
That is true. That is that
So
Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and it's hard to deal with any of this. Like, you know, again, the open borders. People hate to hear the catalyst, like what started it, because we're already past that point, right? And now the question is, what are we going to do, right? And it almost seems to me that if across the board, and the people that are in jail that already have deportation orders, they're already in jail. There's a lot, and there's tons of them. They're sitting in jail. What is it, 38,000? I think in one of the states I saw that got immediately just put on a plane, sent back to Alligator Auschwitz or whatever they call it, or Venezuela, wherever they send in there. Zero casualties, zero confrontation, just done, right? So if there was, in my belief, I don't think this is going to be a perfect situation no matter what, but in my belief that if first of all the prisons where we got this person, they're here illegally, they're this, send them to ICE, right? Zero confrontation. We already know that out of the 3,000, 200 something counties in the United States, only 9 of them are really having this issue. And again, they're all sanctuary cities, right? So sanctuary zones. The other ones, they're not having issues. So I think people as a whole should kind of take all that in consideration before they start pointing the finger and saying that this place is bad, these guys are bad, because we know it can work when the cooperation is there.
Well, I mean, I don't know what your statistics are, but I like I said, you're not seeing this in, Texas and places like that. But I don't know that there aren't a large faction of violent criminals that are illegals in Texas. I don't know that they've gotten rid of everyone, and that's why you're not seeing a problem there.
Well, no, they haven't gotten rid, but the numbers are 10 times what they've gotten out of Minnesota, at least.
Right, but is that because they did 10 times more, or because
10 times bigger?
Or
it could be a lot of things.
Is it because you're talking about a whole state versus a city.
Right.
I just don't know that. I agree that they're focusing on the sanctuary cities. I do agree. I agree with that, and I do think part of that reason is because they're not getting any police help.
Zero police assistance. Right.
But I also think that it's been a goal all along to make these sanctuary cities a target, regardless of how many illegals, violent criminals are there.
Right.
I just think there's so much rhetoric coming out of the White House around this that could be part of the de-escalation process.
Right.
You have to de-escalate somewhere. The private citizen's probably not going to be the first one to de-escalate because they are pissed.
Right.
They
feel invaded.
Yeah.
They feel invaded. But there's also a lot of, and I agree, because I remember even before the huge protest and ICE thing started, Trump was immediately talking about defunding, federal funding toward these sanctuary cities. So they were a target right off the bat. I agree 100%. And because he wanted them to comply with federal law, and a lot of them, they did not want to do it, which also in a sense kind of makes it seem like, now that I'm thinking about it, they kind of put a target on their own backs by not complying with federal law, right? So there's a two-way street with that as far as I'm thinking, and I could be wrong. As again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not. Some of my knowledge is pretty fluid based on things that I've read here and there, and I'll be the first person to admit I think a lot of the stuff that I follow and I read might be a little bit more right-leaning than it is left, or more moderate. So obviously my source of information could be biased in its form as well.
Well, and I think one of the issues that's coming up here too, and it may not, the immigration issue might be the catalyst for it, but I don't know that it's the end game for it, is the idea of states' rights. I really think that it looks like they're trying to eliminate some of the states' rights issues that are out there. In other words, no, the federal government has the right over this, not the state. The state can't say, but yet, in the state constitutions and in the federal constitution, there are rights for the states that should not be impeded.
Right, and there's rights for the states that supersede some federal laws.
Depending on what it is, yeah.
Depending on what it is. Now, I kind of want to pivot here a little bit because this is coming state of mind when I'm thinking about how all this stuff has come to pass, right? So I want to get your take on how do you feel about sanctuary cities and blue states and everything, and why do you feel there's such a push to protect immigration?
I think that the blue states like to position themselves as being more empathetic and more sympathetic. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I think that in certain states, Oregon's probably one. I mean, Arizona's really not a sanctuary state, but they have a lot of, they have a lot of needs there as far as workforce that's not.
Yeah.
The Carolinas are that way. They're apple farms,
The
and all that stuff. Agricultural farms
places,
and all that
yeah.
stuff. But as far as the blue versus red, people are going to hate me for saying this. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it, because we're not listening to each other.
No.
We're not listening. It shouldn't be blue and red. It should be American states. We should be sympathetic on both sides of the issue. Yes. Do you want to protect the hardworking immigrants that are here that may not be U.S. citizens, that are not criminals? Sure. All right. Should there be a path for citizenship for them? Yes. Mm-hmm. Should they be allowed to continue as undocumented, without citizenship and without green cards? No, they shouldn't. There's no reason for that. But at the same time, when you don't want to go to your immigration hearing because
You're afraid ICE
you're afraid you're going to get snatched up and taken out, which has happened. Right. It's like we're causing so much fear, not only among our citizens, but among the undocumented. I don't care if the violent offenders are scared.
Right.
I want them to be scared.
Yeah, they need to stay. Yeah.
But I don't want the ones that are not breaking the law to be afraid. I do want them to be educated and knowledgeable about how they can become citizens.
So I think the fear mongering is huge. I look at some of the stuff that's said out there. A friend of mine posted a meme just yesterday from apparently from they. I don't know who they is, but they said that you're not allowed to protest with First Amendment right. They said that you can't carry concealed weapons. They said, and all of it was exactly a lie.
Right.
Right, because you can protest.
Yeah. And you're not attributing it to a specific informational line of reasoning there.
Right.
You're just saying they. Right.
It's just they, right? They said that, and I won't even go through the whole list because I think it was just completely asinine what I read. And I was like, what, this is wrong, first of all, because all of it's a lie. As somebody who's gone through the whole CCP process, yeah, they sit up and they tell you, like, read the signs. There's a map that you can look at. I mean, everything is out there. They do everything they can to protect you as a concealed carry person to make sure that you are abiding by the law. And they tell you, do not carry weapons to a protest or any place that, where any type of violence could happen. Because protests can turn to a riot really, really easy. It's already volatile to begin with. And then, you put yourself in a situation, now you have a gun, who knows what can happen. Somebody gets a hold of it. And it doesn't have to necessarily have to be you. Somebody else can grab it out of your waist holster or something. And then all hell's going to break loose. So, I commented on it and I gave him, literal fact. Now, everything he said and what he said was wrong. But it's like, and then he had a couple of friends that wanted to share that link. And I said, why are you guys doing this? Morally, it's wrong because legally, none of what you're saying is accurate. And you have no information to back all that up. All you're doing is propagating the fear and misinformation.
And that's the big problem
that's
I have
dangerous.
with social media.
Yeah.
I mean, social media, if you're anonymous, you can say whatever the hell you want. And you don't have to worry about, and you can put forth that. And you know what? The left and right do it equally, I think. I see things on both sides that like, this isn't right. This isn't accurate, and yet they continue to do that. And I'm not saying I'm accurate all the time, but I'm not going to post something that I know isn't accurate. And that's all I tell that guy. It's like, hey, look, if you're going to post that stuff, at least be accurate. You won't get, and there's things that he's posting, I 100% agree. Or yes, I looked it up and you're 100% correct. But I would say a good 90% of what this guy posts is complete propaganda, fear tactics, like, talking about, people, ICE driving down the street and literally jumping out the car and just grabbing people. It's like, show me one report of that actually happening. Well, I don't know that happens, but what I do know is, in fact, they've talked to one of the ICE agents, or maybe it was Bovino or one of them before he left. But they were talking about how if they have a house, say, in the middle of the street, right, they will set up a perimeter, right, and people coming in and out of that street, they will stop.
They can check, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't know if they're involved in this house that they're going to search or whatever. Of course, chances are they're in a neighborhood where you're going to have undocumented aliens. So they're already in that neighborhood.
Right.
So the chance of you getting someone there that's undocumented is probably pretty good.
It'll raise the. But yeah. I mean, how different is that from it being St. Patrick's Day, and then you're setting up checkpoints because everybody's going to be drinking.
Well,
I mean, so we really have to.
But you don't arrest the ones that aren't drinking.
No, but you still check.
No.
I like I said.
And again, it's not about the checking. It's about what happens if someone goes, I don't have to show you my document.
Yeah.
If it's not a legal search and seizure, if it's not if they don't have probable cause, if it's just somebody driving in there, I don't think because you're driving down the street where an attack is, or not an attack,
where a
target is going on, right. I don't think that's probable cause.
No, I agree.
And I'm sorry, black and brown skin is being targeted from vehicles, not white folk.
Well,
I mean, no. Their white people are getting arrested. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, they see people come down there. They are targeting. They are profiling.
If I don't know, and I tend to agree and disagree because I've heard cases of it. I've not seen any actual cases of it. I've heard from both left and right side, of media and everything else that's happening. Now, what I personally, if I'm personally driving and I'm driving out of that place and somebody's stopping me, I haven't committed any crime. Here's my ID.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'm not. And the ones, if you watch some of these videos on Facebook, there's these guys that go around and they're constitutionalists, right?
Oh, the
and
auditors.
They go around. They want to be confronted. And again, that's BS to me.
Yeah, I hate
They're
that.
purposely trying to cause shit because they want to see if the cops are acting the way they're supposed to be. When in reality, if they weren't there doing that,
they wouldn't be
like
there.
you said. Don't start it.
It won't be anything. And those guys, they make a lot of money doing that too, because they get a lot of lawsuits.
Because people watch their videos.
Well, no, in lawsuits.
Oh,
they sue a lot. They can sue a lot.
That's probably why they're doing it.
It's probably their main source of income is that stuff. So
and again, that's another thing of someone taking advantage of a system so that they can better from it.
Right.
You know what? If I'm gonna sue this police force for $500,000 and I get $250,
easy money.
Yeah,
it's easy money. And a lot of those guys understand and they read constitutional law, so they know when applied immunity is gone out the window when a cop is confronting them when they say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing. These guys are well aware of it, probably more so than the police officers are. Right? That's
because that's all they do.
That's all they do.
Yeah, police officer has to also police. They have to arrive on the scene of violent crimes, car accidents. Their jobs are tied up with that. Their jobs aren't necessarily, well, are your rights being violated because I asked to see your driver's license?
Right. Yeah. There's too much. Just too much would be too much. But I get the whole ICE raids. I understand both sides, and I want people to understand that because I've literally already lost like several friends in the last post video. Like literally, people. I heard somebody call me all sorts of names, and then they completely unfriended me. And I'm like, that's
what
fine.
are some of the names they called you, Larry?
Oh, you don't want to know.
Okay.
Well, it's the same names that everybody else gets called if you're assumably on the right, right?
Yeah.
I was Hitler, fascist, racist, sexist.
Were you a Nazi at any time?
I wasn't a pedophile, thankfully. I mean, they probably ran out of time to type it out, but I'm pretty sure it crossed their mind. But yeah, I was all those in the last message before I got unfriended. Which is hilarious because it's like, okay, there's no room for conversation or nothing. I just got slammed and then.
Well, and that's nothing, dude. There's no open discourse.
No.
If you disagree with somebody on Facebook, you might as well forget disagreeing with anybody. I can't tell you how many things I scroll past going, I'm not gonna say nothing.
Yeah.
I know what's gonna happen. If I make a comment on this, I know what's gonna happen. Or if I put something up there that I think is pretty generic and just I'm trying to be diplomatic, trying to, not appease both sides, but try to appeal to both sides.
Right.
I know there's still a chance of getting lambasted by one side.
Oh
or the
yeah,
other.
yeah.
You know.
And it's again, it's sad. Like to me, and George and I had this conversation before we started filming. It's like, I told him, I said, hey, look, none of this is more important than our friendship.
Right.
And I wanted him to know that, because before we started talking, we basically stated that we're probably not going to agree. And we thought that was very interesting in the last time, because if we both had the exact same mind, what would our content be?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's good that there is that contrast. But here's the thing that people need to understand: there's never enough conflict out there to separate a true friendship.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah. And we agree on whiskey and cigars, and
which I
beer
think they're here, by the way.
Are they here?
Yeah,
Or is that what the
I think
dogs
that's what
were
the dogs
barking
are
for?
barking on. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But anyway,
I brought some freshly rolled cigars from the Keys.
And again, we don't disagree politically that much. There's, like I said, I think it's mainly our idea of the tactics being used that we disagree on, because you obviously, well, not obviously, but you've said that, you think it's important that they're doing what they're doing, and I don't disagree. I just like to see them maybe
do it differently,
tone it down a little bit. Find a way to tone it down. And I think, this is just me talking now, just my opinion, I think training would go a long way in saving people's lives.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree with that. But I also have to look at the statistics out of the other 3,000 counties where this is not happening.
Well, and again,
so is it just a training for the ICE agents in Minnesota versus the rest of the country, or is it just Minnesota and not the rest of the country?
I guarantee you, though, if you send 2,000 ICE agents, right, to Brownsville, Texas, I guarantee you'd have people showing up protesting there.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's a red state.
It's a red state, yeah, but it may not be a red district.
Well, it may not be, but I'm just saying in general, I don't think the protests are happening where they are because of the presence of ICE. Albeit ICE weren't there, protests probably wouldn't be there.
Right.
And can they find a way to get these people off the street? Our police force here, they can't help ICE enforcement. It's not that they don't necessarily want to.
They're under order.
But the state law does not allow them to do it, just like it is in Minneapolis. The state law does not allow them. Now, do they want violent offenders off the street, whether they're documented or undocumented? Yes, of course they should. Now, I will tell you, and I'm not speaking of Florence in general, but when I lived in Tennessee and Nashville, when I lived in North Carolina, there were known drug houses. There were known areas of criminality that weren't busted.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with immigration. And it was like, why aren't we doing anything? Yeah. Why aren't we doing anything to control this other stuff going on there? And, a lot of times you hear, well, we have to gather evidence. We have to get all this information before we can do anything. The one thing about ICE is they know who they're going after. Usually I think they do,
Supposedly.
Whether or not they get other people at the same time, that's to be debated. I just saw a expose on the El Salvador prison, and they had over 24 people that were sent from America there that had no criminal record whatsoever, and they were subjected to this torturous.
Yeah, it's like this gladiator, college. Yeah.
So it's like, we need to do a better job at vetting who we're ousting.
Right. No, and I agree with that too. But we got to remember, was it Section 11(8) or something like that? I can't remember the code. But coming into the country illegally is still illegal.
Yeah,
it is still a crime. It is still a crime.
Now, however, the coming into the country illegally is actually a misdemeanor.
Right.
All right. What makes it bad is you let a criminal over, and then that criminal does something else. Then that criminal is responsible for the crimes he commits here.
Right.
It's not like just like an American citizen is responsible for the crimes they commit there.
And those guys are the ones that really are painting the bad picture for everybody else, because and it's hypothetical, 10 million people cross over the border, and we're realizing that there are no oh God, I can't think of any names right now off the top of my Lake and Riley's, right? There's none of these victims and stuff that we're seeing that are being killed by these guys, right? And I don't think the push would be so hard, so urgent, but we do have lots of those cases, and unfortunately, this is the left versus right side, because I like I said, I try to watch all the media, very little coverage. Dakar Richardson, right, who just died not too long ago by a guy who had not only had been caught, I believe, and I could be wrong on my whole background on it, but not only he had been caught, he had been released knowing that he had a criminal record. He killed, raped this girl, and I think she threw over a bridge, right? Yeah. Zero reporting from any of the left-wing media.
That happens a lot more than you would realize.
I look into those. I look into them because I want to know, and this is segue from what we're talking about. I want to know, what is the media telling us what's important to them and what's not important? And unfortunately, and this is a left-right type thing, because not even a lot of right-wing media sources actually covered it. None of these guys are covering any of these deaths.
Well, and here's the other problem, as you mentioned, media, of which I am a part of. I openly admit that.
Not mainstream.
You are not. There's no Walter Cronkites anymore.
No.
There's no. This is the fact. This is what happened. No commentary.
No commentary. No left-right leaning. No bias.
It used to be that the television shows, the entertainment shows, the Jackie Gleasons, the Lucille Balls,
Johnny Carson.
That's what created the money for television.
Right.
News was an offshoot that was supposed to be protected.
Right.
But now, if your advertiser's not going to advertise during your news, you got to change your news.
You got to change your news.
And that's just wrong. There is no, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Fox News lover. I don't care if you're a CNN lover, ABC, NBC, CBS. I don't care who you are. You're not getting straight shots.
You're not getting straight. Nope.
You're not.
Nope.
You're not getting it. We have allowed personal ideology into our news media. And therefore, that's why you're not hearing, if you're on Fox News, you're not hearing this moderate to liberal situation,
right.
in a clear light. If you're on a liberal station, you're not hearing the factual right side of the conversation.
Yep. I agree 100%. 100%.
You're not hearing it, and it's the end of the world as we know it. Society is taking a dive, and it scares the hell out of me.
It is terrible. My neighbor came to me right before going on vacation, and I almost thought, like, I had to look and double take and make sure she wasn't crying. She was so afraid of what was going. She said, "Oh my God!" She heard that. She heard somewhere that Trump was going to use martial law and just start doing boots on the ground here in Florence or something. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, where are you hearing this? And it's whatever media source you're using, you need to really just step away from it. Like, don't turn off the news completely.
There ought to be some things that go, oh, that's not real.
Yeah.
There ought to be some common sense where you go, that's not real. Now, this recent incident in Eugene could put a target on the backs of Oregon. Yeah. And again, they're already concerned about Portland, but even Trump in his last thing said, whatever you protesters do illegally is going to met with equal or greater force.
Right.
So you have to be prepared for that. And the thing I don't understand is, they had this one lady on this morning. I was watching it, and she was talking about, the majority of us were peaceful, and there was only this small contingent that were doing this stuff. Well, you're going to get blamed for the small contingent. You know what? If you don't want to be put in that thing, then you got to consider,
right.
And then again,
either not being involved or pointing them out and just to get them out of there. And that's where I think the police, you're right, they don't have to assist ICE, but they could be there for crowd control.
Yeah.
And that would take a lot of the stress off.
Well, the Eugene police was there for crowd, but there was no really ICE presence there. It was Eugene police. Mm-hmm. They turned it over to federal authority once the building was damaged. And then they said, once it got violent, against the building, then it's up to the federal, which is kind of a chicken shit way to do it, if you want to tell me.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, I'm going to say something else that people aren't going to like. You will never see me at a protest.
No.
You will never see me at a protest. Why? Because I agree or don't disagree? No, that's got nothing to do with it. I personally, that's my personal opinion, I don't think they do any good whatsoever.
I agree.
I don't think all they do is they raise the intensity level of things. You can hold your signs on the street corner. You can get honks from the people going by. That's a nice feel-good kind of thing. You're accomplishing absolutely nothing, in my opinion.
Some people believe that you're bringing awareness, or you're going to bring about a change. And like for the museum situation, right? Well, yeah, I honked my horn for that. I was like, okay, yeah. But I don't even honk my horn, because to me that kind of validates to them why they're there. And again, they won't accomplish anything. And I think it's just you go home at the end of the day and you realize you've been out there for hours on end. You're holding the sign. You got sunburned because you're facing one side of the sun, and there's absolutely zero change.
Like like you mentioned, the museum thing. Our situation with the Oregon Coast Military Museum. It came down to, no jail time. He had to resign. But the reality of it was, this was a chance for one guy in particular to kind of march and say his thing and be divisive. And yet the reality of it was, he got good publicity.
Yeah. Go back and watch that if you have not seen that.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, we have it on our episode. And it's just like, the reality of it is, yes, you want to bring attention to it, but you know what? They were on top of it already.
Yeah.
Once it became a police issue, they were on top of it. Didn't really do a whole lot. Now, we were there, but we weren't there to protest.
No.
We were there to find out what was going on. And
still got into some type of almost altercation just for being.
Well,
it's like, right.
And we got it with the radio station, because we reported on it. And because we didn't report on it the way the guy wanted me to report on it, we were the bad guys.
Yeah. And he was hostile.
He was hostile. And all we were doing was telling the facts of what was going on. We weren't friends with the guy in the military museum.
Right.
We weren't his buddy, although he kept repeating that we were his buddy. Just in order to be divisive and to raise the intensity level. Yeah. That's all it was. And to get likes and clicks on his page. And
we're not saying don't protest. I mean,
no, I'm not saying don't protest. It's your right.
It's your right. And it's your First Amendment right. If you're doing it legally, we support you 100%. I don't care if it's anti-Trump or for Trump or whatever you guys are, whatever you're doing, it's fine as long as you're doing it legally. That's the only thing.
Peacefully.
Yeah, exactly. That's my only take on it. As long as you're doing it peacefully. I can't speak to the outcome of what you're doing, but hey, if it makes you feel better, if it gives you a good vibes or whatever at the end of the day, by all means, do it. But I think what we're saying is we've both been on this planet for a very, very long time.
And I'm not jaded. I just know the reality of it doesn't really.
The modern protest. Now, back in the day, right, civil rights and stuff.
Civil rights.
Yeah, we've seen some protest in history that has made a change, but I don't think that's the case anymore, because times are different. Things are different. The way things are handled are different. Since Trump came down that escalator, maybe even before then, but it's more noticeable now, there is definitely a divide between left and right. And there was always a divide between left and right before, red and blue, but I think it just became, astronomically different since Trump came down that escalator. Mm-hmm. I think, that's my take on it. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'm pretty much in agreement with that. And again, it's like, for example, when George Floyd was killed, mm-hmm. The Black Lives Matter protest mm-hmm. came. During the civil rights era, if you would have had a Black Lives Matter protest, you wouldn't have seen All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter.
No.
You wouldn't have seen all that because of the atrocities that were happening against the blacks.
People. Right.
Yeah.
And to me, those kind of devalued the whole Black Lives Matter when it first came out. Because if you say Black Lives Matter because a black person got killed, and you say, well, White Lives Matter, well, then that just takes away from everything that Black Lives Matter movement stood for. right? And then, oh, well, blue lives matter now. Like, we worry about the cops, and and it's just like, okay, now it's a T-shirt.
Yeah, and that's why the more modern day protests don't work, because there's always somebody else that's going to take it away from you and turn it into something else.
Yep.
Just like, and I don't know this. I am not saying this is the fact. I'm not saying it's even true. All right, but you have a largely peaceful protest in Eugene, and you have 4 or 5 instigators in there that are breaking stuff. You don't know who these instigators are.
No.
They might not be pro or anti that. They might just be people that want to break stuff and cause damage.
And there are accusations.
And they don't have to be in favor or against your protest.
No.
They just see an opportunity to go out there and break windows.
And I don't think anything has been completely confirmed yet. I know the allegations and stuff are out there, but there are paid agitators that are there just, well, I don't say I know, allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm going to say allegedly because I can't confirm this, and I know that people say there are, and they show all these little informational things that say that, yes, this person's a paid agitator. They show up at all these different events. There's the one where the guy gets up and he burns the flag, and the lady was following him, and as soon as he burns the flag, he gets everybody riled up, and then he walks back to his car, and she literally follows him to his car. Could be staged, could be real, but this person was obviously there to light the wick and then walked away before the fuse, detonated, right? So it's, these protests are completely different. Everything has changed.
It's a different world.
It's a different world.
Sort of take us off course here for a minute, but I was watching Bill Maher do his monologue talking about presentism. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the term presentism. What it basically is that we're holding 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century people responsible for today's modern day thought.
Yeah.
In other words, they should have known better.
The forefathers should have known that we're going to have AK-47s.
Well, no, yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
He was talking about slavery, mm-hmm. right? In today's world, we wouldn't even think about, that.
Right.
They should have known better back then. They should have known better. Where blacks had slaves, whites had slaves, whites were slaves, Irish were slaves. I mean,
Chinese were slaves, yeah.
Yeah, everybody. There was slavery. In fact, he goes back all the way to the Bible, which is predicated on, a lot of slavery.
Yeah.
So it's not like something that, all of a sudden in this world today, they should have known about then, because he likened it to the idea of when you're a child, you did things as a child that you wouldn't do as an adult.
Right.
I stole a candy bar as a child I wouldn't do as an adult. I did things. I stole $10 from my sister when I was a child that I wouldn't have done as an adult. But it's the progression of, and he likened civilization to the age, childhood of civilization, middle age of civilization to the golden age of civilization, where it's like, all right, now maybe we know more, and therefore we are more intelligent, more educated. We don't do the things we used to do, but we can't hold that society back then accountable for our beliefs today.
Agreed.
Anyway.
No, I agree 100%. And you can't go back and rewrite it, because it's going to be written in favor of whoever is in power and writing it at that moment.
Right. The victor writes the history.
Right.
And that's true. In fact, he was talking about, and again, we're getting a little off topic here, but he was talking about how these balloonists that had the world record of going the highest,
mm-hmm.
Highest in the atmosphere,
uh-huh.
right? There's now a movie out about it, right? And of the 2 balloonists, one's a man and one's a woman.
Uh-huh.
In the real story, they're both men. In the fact, they're both men. Uh-huh. But the Hollywood story changed it to a man and a woman because he wanted to get, what's the word I want?
Not wokeism.
Not wokeism, but he wanted to get representation.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to get equal representation,
which is still kind of somewhat almost wokeism, a little
kind of weird. Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. But it was like, I don't know if you saw the interview with Jerry Seinfeld, where the guy's interviewing Jerry, and he goes, "How come there were no black people on Seinfeld?"
No, but that was always that and like Friends. I always have that was, was always a we had Jackie Chow, right? Wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, but
I
mean, but it was predominantly white folks.
They weren't afraid 99.9%.
But he was like, come on, give me a break. We're writing comedy here. You want to make it into something else? Go ahead and make it something else. We didn't exclude black people
No.
because we excluded black people. It was a core, group of people, and they did it situationally.
Right.
That's,
It's funny because I felt, and there's a total tangent here. I felt totally different towards Seinfeld than I did towards Friends, even though that was always a concern on both of those shows for me. But I think the older I got, I started looking at that, and I was like, there's not like really any black people in Friends either.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
But see, I wasn't a big fan of Friends, so
Yeah.
I didn't really.
I wasn't
I didn't
either.
really watch them that much
You know.
to see. Yeah.
But you have to look for that stuff in order to see that stuff, and I think that was the thing. I think
Yeah.
I Big
Well,
Bang, and
it's like, did you see the movie Sinners?
I did,
Did you?
yeah,
I mean, that was predominantly black people.
black people, yeah,
I mean, there were white people in it. They were all the vampires.
the villains,
The villains.
the villains.
Deb and I watched that
I can say that.
Deb and I watched that last night, right? And we started watching it. It's interesting and all that. And I saw this one actor in there. I said, I think I've seen him in something else. So I go to Chat GPT and I'm looking down there and I'm like, vampire horror movie. And I'm like, we hadn't gotten to that point yet. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell Deb this because she's not going to want to watch the movie then because she's just not.
Oh,
into
you
that.
did. So this is your first time actually seeing it?
Yeah, I didn't know that it
Oh.
was about vampires.
See, I didn't either. I had no idea, and I think that's part of the reason why I didn't. I for some reason I just did not like it that much. Because a lot of people love that movie.
I loved it. I mean,
I-
I didn't. I could have done without the vampire, but I understand, the whole.
I understand the
aspect
lore,
of it.
yeah, and everything, but yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot of race put into everything, and I think that as far as going back to the ICE thing, it's just I don't know.
Well, and it goes back, and again, like, what does Hollywood have any responsibility in all this? Because I think I watch a movie where, where it's the CIA, right,
Mm-hmm.
and they have these bad counterparts that are Arabs,
Right.
All right. Now, in 20 years, when these are now our allies, if they are our allies, will we look back at that and say, well, this probably attributed to some of the hatred that was going on there? Same way with the Russians, or same way, whether it's the plantation owners that were the bad guys, or the slaves in some movies were fighting back, and people took that offense to that if they were
Yeah.
more on the the white only side of things. So it's like, we watch these Hollywood movies and think, oh well, they're just entertainment, but I'm not so sure.
There is some conditioning, I believe, that comes into those movies because, as you know, I'm a huge movie buff, right? I watch lots of stuff. Growing up as a kid, I watched all these movies that always portrayed Russians as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Always, they were always bad guys, right? Harry, when what's his name? Michael Caine played Harry the spy, and so it's always the Russian guys are always bad. So when you grow up, and you start seeing people as adults, you start seeing this, and you start hearing Russian crime, and it's like I honestly, and this is for my Russian friends, I'm not saying anything negative, but in the back of my mind, it's like, not surprised. Because I've been conditioned to
Right.
think that way,
Right.
It's just like, and suspension of disbelief and understanding that it's not real. I think a lot of that, like you said, a lot of that stuff does take, it's back there subconsciously. I think.
But the one thing I always took from all this, and I don't know how I did this even as a young kid, but I was like, the people, I never felt the people, the citizens, were bad. I never looked at it as like, oh, they're Russian, they're bad.
Right.
I looked at it as governmentally. Always looked at it, like a lot of people think our government's bad.
Right.
Oh
yeah.
A lot of people think the Russian government's bad. A lot of people think the Iranian government's bad. And the people themselves, you go meet people, and you think these are some of the nicest, sweetest people you ever
Right.
want to meet.
Oh yeah. No, I had great.
And we've done the
Russian
same
friends.
thing with the Mexican population,
Yeah.
the Latin American population.
They're all
we look at
gang
them,
members.
They're all gang members.
They're
They're all
all gang
criminals.
members, right.
They're all in the cartel. If you speak Spanish,
Right.
you're cartel. I
Right.
mean, I even joke about some of our local establishments here. I say, oh, the trade must be really good right now. And that's just not right.
Food and gang members. Yeah, no, it's it's not right at all. But some people are conditioned to kind of think that way. Like I said, I noticed that I did when I was a kid growing up, and I was just like, at some point I realized, holy shit, like I am completely indoctrinated by watching these old spy movies from the 60s and 70s.
So what kind of moral ending can we give to this? I mean, I would say one thing is we need to de-escalate.
Right.
We need to become more educated. We need to realize what works and what doesn't work. And if it's something that doesn't work, let's maybe not do that.
Right.
You know? And I'm not talking about ICE. I'm talking about from the protest side.
Yeah.
And again, from the
ICE side
you
too.
know,
Yeah. I mean, neither side is immune to being held accountable for anything that's going
Right.
on in my purview. But I think that one, yes, if I was to put it in the number category, right? Let's say top 5 things. I think number 1 is you can't be closed-minded. We can't be closed-minded. We have to understand there's 2 sides to every story, not just some stories. Every single story. There's always a 2 side to it. I think that will be a good start, a good foundation to build, situational awareness and understand what's going on in the world today. Because ICE isn't inherently bad. Protesters aren't inherently bad. These guys that are being deported aren't inherently bad. Like none of these characters are not bad. It's just a very bad soup.
Well, there are some bad characters.
There are some bad characters
in that they're arresting. I
Right.
mean, there are some violent criminals that need to be off the street. But I mean, there are some that are.
There are some that
they're
are
not
very,
bad.
very good people. Like I said, there's people that mother with kids come over here, and this is the only way they're going to survive because they can't live where they're living, and they literally want to be productive members of society. And unfortunately, that person is friends with a guy who just killed 5 people, and chopped them up on the other side of the border, and they come for him. She's going too, along with her kids, and it is sad because maybe that's the only place that she can stay. And this is all hypothetical stuff, but I mean, those are the situations that are out there because you got to remember, out of 2 million people that are being deported currently under Trump's administration, that story is likely to be an actual situation. The likelihood of it being an actual situation is pretty common. But I think number 1, you can't be closed-minded. Number 2, have dialogue with people because they may know something that you don't know, and you might know something that they don't know, and through that dialogue, you'll both learn something, right? So I think that that's morally, that's kind of where I think that things will kind of progress as far as at least from our standpoint, because we're not going to stop Trump from what he's doing. That's not going to happen.
No.
The courts are trying; they're not going to do it because constitutionally, it is a legal act to deport, and other presidents has done it, right? So maybe not, instead of changing that, change yourself. Understand what's going on. Understand that, yes, you're out there protesting, you're honking your horns, you're doing all this stuff, you're stopping ICE. And if you do stop them, you might end up stopping someone who may end up molesting and raping and killing your kids. I mean, from being arrested. So there's that to be, I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I think, again, open-minded, have dialogue, and educate yourself, like you said. That's the hugest thing. And I think all 3 of them was on the same path of education.
All right, you said top 5 though. What are your other 2?
I forgot. Number 4 would be, calmness.
Stay
right?
calm.
Stay calm. Stay calm. It's not the end of the world. Don't let yourself be bullied by either side. Don't let yourself be taken down a path of anything that'll make you do something that's stupid. Number 5, I would say.
Can I do number 5?
Okay, go ahead.
Don't take social media as fact.
Yes.
Do not. I mean, if you have a number 6, we can do that. But I'm just saying, you people that are on there social media and as soon as somebody posts something, you're like, oh yeah, and then you find out later it's not.
I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
This person share it. This
and you
person
find out
share
later
it.
it's not true.
Right. Question everything. And that's my stand on everything. And I think it's kind of, maybe it's commonplace for me to think that way because that's my work, right? Something breaks, I have to question everything. And I think that's kind of overflowed into my day-to-day life with everything. Politically, what I'm going to have for dinner, I question everything, right? And it can make you a little loopy at times, but right now, that's what we need in order to, like you said, de-escalate this. You got to question everything because not everything is always as black as white as we like it to be, except for us too.
Yeah, except for us too.
We're black as white.
So now, barring any escalation of atrocities in the next week or so, I'm hoping maybe we can talk movies or something. next week.
I do have the and it's just a short little blurb of our trip to. We take an annual trip to Cowboy Dinner Tree, and I know we mentioned this before.
When are we going to see that?
Yeah, it's the perfectionist in me. I literally had it done, and then I did all these voiceovers and stuff, and I didn't really cover the gift shop. So literally,
so now you got to put the gift shop in.
Oh, the gift shop's there. I just got to do a voiceover for the gift shop,
okay.
And that's it. And everything else, the interview's there. And I did edit out a lot of Jamie, the owner there. He did talk about a lot of other things that were kind of not really related to the restaurant, which I would love to have him on our podcast. Actually, he's interested in just coming and just have just a general conversation, maybe not even related to Cowboy Dinner Tree.
Okay, let's do it.
And he's nutritionalist. The guy's it seems like he's a wealth of knowledge. Generally, a very, very nice guy. So I would love to have him on to our podcast to talk about other things, but I just wanted to try to edit it to where everything was really pertaining to the restaurant, because we talked for a really, really long time.
Well, I had the intention of putting some snippets up there from our Congresswoman Val Hoyle and our Senator Ron Wyden, who I had the opportunity to interview this last week. We really didn't get into specifics where I could use those sound bites in there, but just so you know, they did happen.
Hey, maybe we'll edit into another one.
Well, but the thing is that we didn't really stop at a point in that to say, okay, this is what she said, let's comment on it, which would have been a nice thing to do. But maybe next time. Yeah. But,
we can still add them.
Well, we could, but...
We just won't have any of our dialogue.
I don't know. Because it's... Unless we comment on it.
There's no context.
Yeah, there's really no context to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because there's three different things she talks about. One is... how many ICE agents there are. One is, their training, and the other is what's happening in Eugene. So, pretty much. Or maybe I'll just throw it at the end of this and you can listen or whatever.
Yeah. Or if we find a lot of free time. Because we also have the Ilhan Omar attack.
Yeah, we have that. We didn't talk about that
pretty
much.
Videos that we wanted to go over.
But,
and
in post, maybe. Hey, thanks for staying all the way to the end. Larry has said this before, but if you have any topics or that you'd like us to cover, let us know. Comment on it. We'll be happy to do some research on it and get back with you.
And we're on we're close to getting to 100 subscribers, which we should have a lot more by now because we know that you guys are watching. Let's see. We'll get to 100. Maybe we can try to see. I don't even know can you see who's actually subscribing? Have you looked at
you can see who the subscribers are. But the active ones are the ones you really see.
So I want to see if we can maybe do something for the 100th subscriber.
Ooh, the 100th subscriber? Yeah, we can do that.
We do milestones. We'll do some milestones. Maybe give them some swag.
T-shirt, sweatshirt, something. Yeah, we can do that.
So like, comment, subscribe, and that might even get you something too. But we definitely want to get to 100. So let's get to 100 subscribers. It's a milestone. I think our content's pretty good. I think people always give us great feedback and whatever. But we want to see it on that end. So
that's right. Hey, thanks for staying to the end, and be calm.
Peace out.
It's these two guys. These two guys. It's these two guys.